Now is the opportunity for you to talk to your peers in the industry about some of the big issues of today. We are going to move around the room to different tables. We have signs on a few of these about the different topics. The three topics that are going to be discussed are harnessing data to improve productivity, and that will discuss how data has helped make informed project management decisions on projects and how the industry can improve interpretation of data and harness the information better. That discussion is going to be moderated by Neil Robertson, Chief Executive of the National Skills Academy for Rail. Neil, if you could give people a wave so they can find you. I think, though, that table is overcoming the skills gap, so harnessing data is over there. So then another discussion is overcoming the skills gap and improving diversity in the industry. Participants will be able to discuss whether you think there's a business case for a more diverse and inclusive business and how EDI initiatives help close the skills gap. That will be moderated by both Tim Balcon, Chief Executive of the CITB. Tim is over there. And Lara Potter, who we saw on stage earlier, Director of Workforce for Arcadis, who is over there as well. Those sessions, the tables for that are over here. So when people move around, if you wouldn't mind heading over here, if that's okay. And the final option that you have is reducing carbon when delivering programs. That will be a session where you can talk to your peers and colleagues about what innovative materials you're trialling to reduce your carbon footprint, what changes you've made that have had the biggest impact on reducing carbon on a project. And that will be moderated by John Hall, Sustainability Manager of Mace, who is over there at the back. But the tables for that are down here, these two at the front. So that's how it works. I will be back at 12:35, where I will ask the moderators or a nominated person for some feedback on your discussion. We can share it with everyone in the room. So I hope you enjoy that. The tables are these ones down the front. So pick your option. All right. Thanks, everyone. We are out of time on this. If you just want to close your sessions, please. I hope you've all found this conversation useful and stimulating. So now we are going to hear from a designated person in each of the discussions about what you've found in the session for your from the discussion, so that people in another discussion can learn about what happened in the ones they weren't able to attend. So if we go in the order that they were advertised. So harnessing data to improve productivity. Neil, are you going to sum up the session?
Thank you. I had an assertive and creative and knowledgeable group, but none of them would agree to feedback. So I'm sorry you've got me. We were gloomy at first. And we felt that there was a lot that we weren't doing. But when we dug down a bit, we found numerous examples of where data was, in fact, helping productivity, ranging from rollers on embankments right through to cost data, project management. So we became more optimistic because we could see a number of examples. I think we felt that we were not yet at the point of the paradigm shift. So we asked the question, what's stopping us do more? And the answer that came back most commonly was trust and capability and skills. And we have dinosaurs in the boardroom, so that's a problem. But we have people who, frankly, are quite capable of using data more, but it hasn't been made their job. And then we've got actually the digital and data capability in our organisations. And I ranted on a bit about data analyst apprentices. And there's definite trust issue with data that we need to solve. And then a provocative person said, well, where will we see the benefits first? And we went round the table, and at first I thought this isn't a clear answer, but actually what it was is that actually there are benefits at every point in the supply chain, whether you're a regulator, and I tried to draw people on regulation, but they sort of didn't bite that much. Government, clients, suppliers, and even the smaller businesses. So there are benefits for all of us in this. And optimistic signs are we had examples of where a whole supply chain approach, Balfour Beatty was mentioned, driving it in a particular project. So I think we ended up slightly more optimistic that it's coming, but we do need to get rid of a few old ideas and perhaps some old people as well. But thank you.
Thanks very much, Neil. Great. Okay, so on to the discussion about overcoming the skills gap and improving diversity in the industry. Who wants to feedback on that one?
Take the word want lightly. Thank you. Well, I have to say that was a fascinating conversation, actually a really inspiring conversation as well, listening to lots of different points of view and lots of different activities as such. So I'll break this down into three areas if I can. One is the business case. We explored the business case, and we started by saying it's 2021, do we really need to make a business case for employing a equal and diverse workforce? But nevertheless, we did that. And it's about creating those high-performing teams. It's about attracting the talent. It's about recruiting in a difficult market. It's the costs of keeping talent within your organisation and making sure that you can keep and retain and attract the best people, which is a pretty, I suppose, obvious list of stuff here. Some of the things that work really well, we have examples of, and I've not come across this phrase before, but it sounds fascinating, rare and contextualised recruiting. Some of the employee networks where people could speak to a friend network or people that can associate with themselves to have that safe space that they can address some of the issues. Understanding, there was one example of a company understanding the lived experience of minority groups or small groups, and all some of these are absolutely fascinating activities. And then we sort of went to the nuclear button. Do we have the leadership in construction that we can create an equal and diverse and inclusive sector? And almost, I think universally or unanimously, the answer was no. And very simply, just how leadership looks actually doesn't paint a picture of being equal in itself. And then we looked at the competence. Although there might be a desire and a best intent to do those things, actually some of the competence about understanding some of the issues that people have, we didn't feel was necessary there at leadership as well.
Thanks, Tim. Common theme there of the leadership of the industry coming up in both those. Thanks very much. And finally, reducing carbon when delivering programs. John, I think you were sort of flitting between two simultaneous discussions there. So what was the feedback from that?
Yeah, great, thank you. So I introduced the topic to our group about how you almost have to go back to the start of the procurement process and ask, well, do you really need a building in the first place? Because the most sustainable building is the one that already exists. But then we started actually talking about ways of delivering, reducing carbon throughout a programme. And we talked about Calc-Bray's hyperpile solution and earth-friendly concrete as a solution. But there are logistical problems with that. There can be around the curing time and how that affects the overall programme and the fact that it may not already be specified at the beginning of that programme, which led us on to some construction law conversations around how contracts work. Because if the contract's already set, then it becomes difficult then to alter the program and the cost, and then there's no incentive to use these innovative materials. And then we discussed actually, can you change these contracts so that the benefits are shared across all parties? And then we moved on to discussing some around the availability of data, how innovative products can be marketed, how people can know about these materials, and the fact that the information is actually not readily available in the industry. There's some that exists, but until there's and it comes down then to policy, and perhaps there needs to be some sort of policy mechanism that drives the industry to start producing environmental product declarations, so then you are able to freely go and choose, specify, procure the very best product. And then that in itself would drive the industry in this organic process of continual improvement. And then I think then we started talking about retrofitting existing buildings and how the existing building is almost always the most sustainable option. So do we need to demolish? Can we retrofit? I wrote down and underlined deconstruction rather than demolish. Is there social value that can be had from removing parts of that building and installing them somewhere else that can be used? And that in itself will reduce the carbon, and that then moves on to waste, and it becomes difficult to quantify. But if you can reduce the amount of material, then you start to reduce the amount of carbon, and then we barely got onto operational carbon, but the final point was around proposing a lower carbon option in that program, and that's looking at the cost of operating that building, and understanding that cost up front to improve. And I think that just about covers everything.
Great, thanks very much, John. And thanks to Lara, Tim, and Neil for moderating all the sessions. I hope you all found that useful and enjoyable. I wondered, anyone feeling more optimistic about the topic they were discussing? Yeah.
Sitting around people that are like-minded, so that's always
Good. Okay. Well, thanks for everyone who took part. And next up, we have more networking and lunch. So hope you all enjoy that. We'll be back in here at 1:45, where the sessions will continue with speaker from Network Rail. See you later.